Eskom has increased load shedding to stage 4 from 1 p.m. until 10 p.m. tonight. Stage 4 load shedding will also be implemented again at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning until 10 p.m. tomorrow night. The power utility says this is due to electricity demand being higher than anticipated, resulting in some units having tripped. We're now joined via Zoom by the Managing Director for Nuclear Industry Association of South Africa, Mr. Knox Msebenzi. He will be weighing in on the rolling blackout by energy supplier Eskom. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Msebenzi. Now, of course, this latest extension comes just at the backdrop or the background of, the president saying yesterday in Mpumalanga while he was doing that imbizo that he is confident that, Eskom's management is doing well and can keep the lights on. But of course, we heard earlier this week also from energy experts, saying that we are likely to see stage 8 of rolling blackouts. One can't be, helped by thinking, this is starting to become a reality. Your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The issue of electricity planning is very profound. It's fortunate that we have tended, the whole world, in fact, not just in South Africa, we have tended to mix professionalism with politics. A lot of the planning that went into the 2019 IRP, if the 2019 IRP could be implemented as intended, it is not perfect for everybody, but if it had been implemented and had been followed, I think we would be in a much better place. The point I am trying to make is this: we do not plan for today, we plan for the future. There are countries that plan their electricity supply 50 years ahead. The Chinese, for example, are putting in infrastructure, both renewable energy, nuclear, and even coal for that matter, and they're planning for a long term to come. Unfortunately, we have got this political situation in the world where there is so many interested parties, there are so many experts that are coming forward and advising the public, the government and everybody as to how to go about it. If we go back in history, the electricity utility, Eskom, was one of the best utilities in the world. It knew how to do its planning and whatever. Somewhere along the line, something went wrong. I can't get into speculation as to what went wrong, but we've come from hero to zero, which is very unfortunate. But I think the bottom line of what I'm saying is planning is a very important part, and knowing how the electricity industry operates is very important. It's not something that we will learn just on Google and then we come out in the public and say that we are experts.
Just talking about the 2019 IRP plan, from the perspective of nuclear and energy generation, where's Eskom failing in generating enough power supply?
From what we are hearing, it is the coal plants that are not reliable. It again goes back to the issue about lack of planning. From what I understand, the newest coal plants were thought about and implemented in a bit of a rush because there was a lull, a period where Eskom was not building new capacity, and then suddenly the penny dropped, and then policymakers said, please go ahead and give us more power. And then it was done hurriedly at a time when the expertise had pretty much left Eskom. There was a time when Eskom had a whole floor full of experts in terms of power plant building. There was a time when they were in the 70s when they were building one power plant per year. But then that expertise went away. And so we are sitting with aging power plant, coal power plant, and therefore the maintenance requirements have gone very high. This is what we understand from Eskom. That's where the problem is.
Now, we've already had, just this year alone, 25 days of rolling blackouts, and counting, of course. And we know that, given the fact that we are in the winter season, that the likelihood of, those rolling blackouts continuing is high. Where do you see that this is going to lead, to, especially from an economic perspective? Can this country really afford this?
I think there is nobody who is in disagreement that we cannot afford blackouts. Nobody in this debate doubts that the fact that blackouts are bad news for the economy. So having said that, the issue is not to belabor the point and say blackouts are going to affect us. The issue is to find a solution, a quick solution. Unfortunately, I go back to my issue about trying to plan for today. Today is wrong. We should have planned for today 10 years ago. So what we should be doing now is planning for the years to come. Yes, we may be going through difficult times now. We need to put our sober minds and say, how do we prevent this situation from happening? We need to have short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions to the problem. And we need to take away the politics and the self-interest out of the equation and have national interests and make sure that we are focused on doing the things that are right for our economy.
And I hear you talking about, planning ahead and the importance of long-term as well as medium-term plans, etc. But, there is the issue then, of course, that has come to light in recent days, and that is the issue of sabotage at some Eskom plants. And Tutuka, to name just one of those power stations, having had, incidences reported, 2 incidences, in fact. And we know that this is the 5th incident, in fact, of alleged sabotage at Eskom plants since March 2021. So politics aside, planning aside, there's also that element that has come into the fray.
I'm trying to avoid delving into issues where I have got no expertise in. The issues about sabotage and so on, those are matters to be dealt with by the security cluster of this country. From where I stand, coming from the Nuclear Industry Association, those kind of issues are best left to the experts. So I would respectfully decline to talk about those things because I don't have any expertise in the security aspect of that.
Now, you obviously, have talked a lot about solutions. What does Eskom do now to make sure that this country does not suffer any more than it has suffered? Of course, the question of expertise at the entity has also come to the fore. In terms of solutions, what would you say is probably needed, in the coming days from a short-term to a medium-term solution?
Well, I think that the short-term solution has to be all-inclusive. There's been talk about introducing or extending renewable energy sources. Much as I come from the nuclear industry and I would have liked to see base load being implemented, but I know that it cannot be implemented today. It's a long-term planning, medium to long-term planning. But I think the other thing that could be addressed is the maintenance of the coal power plants. We should have a plan of decommissioning the coal plants as is mentioned in the IRP 2019. This idea sometimes of wanting to decommission them much earlier than expected, I don't know if it is such a good idea, but according to the 2019 IRP, we had a plan to take the coal fleet to decommission them and introduce new technologies, including nuclear, renewables, and new coal. So this is the kind of thing that we may need to do. It's interesting to note that the installed capacity that we have in the country is much higher than the maximum demand that we have. So in my view, therein lies the solution. We have capacity. Let's do something about that capacity and plan properly how to decommission this capacity in years to come.
Talking about what you've just said now in terms of capacity, I mean, I'm reminded of what Minister Pravin Gordhan said in his 2022-2023 financial year, budget presentation, saying that Eskom's generation is underperforming with the energy availability factor languishing at 58% year to date. And given what you've just said in terms of capacity, how do you then reconcile what the minister has said, of 58% as opposed to the 75% that was originally targeted?
The answer lies in the maintenance of coal power plants. That is the answer. Maintenance. I can't emphasize that point any more than this.
And how much, do you think that the current board, of course, they've had various, key, objectives to fulfill, and they haven't done that as yet. Do you think they should also be held somewhat accountable in terms of making sure that they reach, some of these objectives that are targeted for Eskom?
As a generic question, if you're asking somebody whether the board of directors of an entity should be held accountable for the performance of the entity, the answer, a textbook answer, is a yes. I don't need to know the intimate details of what is behind some of the politics or whatever in the organization. If you ask a question, somebody, do board members of an entity need to be held accountable for the performance of that entity? The answer is an obvious yes.
Mr. Msebenzi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it as we start to unpack, just some of Eskom's problems as a utility, as we again hear of an